And all three, I say three meets or chats. It was the same one on Monday, but broken up into three slices. Those are all on our YouTube playlist now. So if you need to go back and look at clipping masks or whatever, those are up or were up. Let's see. Let's share my screen. We don't need that. Do I still have the mock-up available? I might need to download it again. So I'm going to do that. So the mock-up that most of you are going to use will be, I put it in two places. The easiest for me to grab is the poster. Indoor advertising mock-up. Again, if you want to use your own, that's totally fine. There's lots of really good ones out there. This is just the one that I have handy. So open this up. Looks pretty familiar. We don't need this yet. All right, so when you are done and you are going to present what we call a contextual file, meaning your design in a more real world setting, we're going to use a file like this. It's a smart object, or it's got a smart object in it. Here it is. And it even says your design here, double click the layer thumbnail. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. Be a bit careful. It's easy to double click on the title. And if you do that, you're just going to retitle the layer, which is fine. And if you double click off to the right of it, you're going to open up its layer styles properties, which again, both are useful, but neither one's going to help you position your file into this photograph. So make sure that you click on what's called the layer thumbnail, the square. Double click, you've entered a PSB. I told you that these are useful for smart objects and for layer file size. I wanted to reiterate that because I'm working on something. I wonder if, oh, is it here? Showed up for a second. I might be able to find it later if I'm bored. I'm working on something for school and it's bigger. It's like a 24 by 24. And it's got just a bunch of layers and masks and gradients. It exceeded the 2 gig file size pretty quick. So it is and will always be a PSB until I merge it all together to send it to the printer. So if you wind up with a PSB as in boy, that's really what it's telling you. Like it's just too big. No big deal. All right, so let's drop an image in here, save it, close it, and let's see if it worked. I just need to find anything. We're going to be using this file here pretty soon. So how do I get one file into another? This should be kind of old news by now. Lots of different ways. You could select all by a command or a control A, get the marching ants around the entire thing. I don't know if this is the best way because if you've got a layered file, it's only going to grab that layer. So it might be better to do something like this. Here's my PSB and go to File, Place. Linked or embedded, which one to choose? If you think you might still be working on it, choose linked. That way when you make your adjustments, it will update. If you know you're done and it's a flat file, you can just choose embedded. I'll choose embedded. Here it is. Place. Voila. Make it a little bit bigger. Hit enter to apply that free transformation. Now I have to save. If you don't save and you close out, it won't work. So you got to Control S, W to close. Boom. Save this, put this in your process PDF. You're good to go for that part. Now, if I need to work on it some more, maybe add some type or whatever, just double click. I'll invert it and drop in some dummy type. Control or Command S to save. Control or Command W to close. And there it is. So very versatile. It's a great technique to know. In fact, I know that a lot of your instructors are going to make it mandatory. So you're probably doing this in other classes as well. but I did want to go over it again. So that takes care of that, and we will revisit one more time on Monday and probably throughout the remaining of the semester, depending on the different things. So your next project is not going to be a poster, but you are going to be required to do mock-ups for that. Your final project will have mock-ups in a different setting, and so forth and so on. All right, well, we can shut the book on that. So let's see what's next. I think it's healing brush, but I don't want to assume. Clone stamp, or yeah, no, sorry, healing brush. All right, your healing brush file, the one that I'm going to use, is in your demo folder, and I think it's actually the one I had open. So let me show you where that's at if you want to follow along. Now, this one is not due, so if you want to just watch, that's fine. If you want to follow along, I would highly encourage you. Healing brush is something that will not be in every project, but when you need to make little retouches, particularly where we see this the most would be like blemishes and things like that. This is the tool to use. So we're going to go to demo files, healing brush. This is the file. So go ahead and download it. I'll wait a second and I'll open it back up. We've been talking about one aspect of Photoshop, and there are several different aspects, and we will not cover all of them. So if you're a web designer, you're going to be using different tools, workflows, and techniques than you would if you're a photographer, or if you're a painter, or if you are a, in this case, image retoucher. But I did want to try to cover the majority of stuff that you would encounter, because this is a particular part of Photoshop that is used day in and day out by photographers, or if you have a job like I had in grad school where you just do image restoration. This is a really, really big tool. Some of you might have messed around with it before. There's the way to do it, and then there's a better way of doing it. We're going to do the better way of doing it. All right, so here's a really good looking image, nice depth of field, good colors, yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to make my obligatory statement, and I'll probably say it one more time when we do the liquify tool in a couple of weeks, but this is one of the tools and one of the techniques that kind of give people something of a complex when it comes to how they look, because keep in mind, anything that you see in print, majority of the stuff that you see on the web has been retouched. People don't look like that. Okay, they've had the skin treatment, they've had the eye lifts, they've had the neck pinch, they've got the bags removed. This is all Photoshop. This is all post-process work. If you've never seen the Dove True Beauty campaign, it's old. I'll try to link to it after break. It's really good. It gives you a sense of what a model looks like before and what the model looks like after. So, I think this is a really good image. She's a pretty girl. Does she have a few blemishes? Yeah, but so everybody has blemishes. Well, in the model world, or just in the print world, design world, art world, whatever, we want to see like the best version of you. So we're going to use some tools to kind of take care of those things. I always feel a little bit like, like it's fine, just do it the way that it is. That's how they look. But people want to conceal pimples and blackheads and yellow teeth and all that stuff, the stuff that makes us us. So we're going to do it. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit. Let's take a look at some of the target areas in question here. So just a few little blemishes here and there, nothing big. If you have someone that's got a much larger problem, this tool will work, but only to a certain point. If you overuse this tool, it ends up looking real plasticky and fake, and it ends up like defeating the purpose. So if someone has like serious redness, like a sunburn or rosacea or something like that, you have to do a different technique. I don't know if we'll get into that, maybe. But for simple little things like this, just like a little pimple here or there, a little red spot, broken blood vessel, whatever, this works out really well. All right, so here's the tool. It is J on your keyboard. And right now, it looks like I was using the patch tool at some point. I can't imagine why. I don't remember why I would be using it. But if I click and hold, we've got all of our retouching tools kind of nestled into one spot here. So we've got a spot healing brush. That's actually what we're going to be using. We've got a remove tool, healing brush. I realize that people are like, well, spot and healing, what's the difference? I don't even know why the healing brush is still around. The spot has completely taken over, but it's still here. Patch tool, which is like a really, really big healing brush, content aware move tool, and the red eye tool. The fact that the red eye tool still exists is mind boggling. There's so many different, better ways to do this. But I mean, I don't even really see red eye anymore. I think that's like weird flash photography that doesn't exist much anymore. I can't tell you the last time I saw a red eye in images, but there are some out there, and that's what this tool was designed for. But again, we won't talk about it. So the one that we're going to be doing is the spot healing brush. It's got the name brush in the title. That's what it is. It's really just a brush. So you have all of your normal brushes. If you hit F5, go to your brushes. You could plug in your oil brush or your craft tone or your splatter brushes. I have no idea why you'd want to. This tool works best with just a very, very simple circle brush. Softer hard edges, believe it or not, hard edges work better. Again, I don't really know why, but that's what's yielded the best results for me. So I'm going to take a look at my brush up here. Size, it's fine. Hardness, it's hard, fine. So should look like a little circle. And I'm just going to use the right bracket to make it a bit bigger. All right, so a couple things about the, is it called the spot? Yeah, I think it's called the spot healing brush. A couple things about the spot healing brush. One, you want your brush to be slightly bigger than whatever you're targeting. So I'm going to start with this little blemish on her forehead. My brush is just a little bit bigger than it. Should work perfect. Two, I could click right now and get rid of it. In fact, I'm going to do this. You don't have to. I'll show you a better way. So I'm just going to click once, boom, magic, right? Just gone. So that's great. Here's the problem. Real quick story, and then we'll do it the right way. So I'm going to Control or Command Z to bring that back. I think I might have told you. If not, this will be new info. But that school that I worked at, that job that I worked when I was in school, I was just restoring photographs 8 hours a day. That's all it was. And I got a very old image that had, as old images do, like little chips missing out of it, or water damage, or mold, or just photos are kind of falling apart. So, you go in there and clean them up. I'd be using this tool. And it was an image of someone's like great grandmother or something like that. And I did this. I did exactly this. I was just like, oh, I'll just fix this, and I'll fix this, and I'll fix this, and looked great. Saved it just like I did this. It was a single file. I did everything on the layer. We printed it on canvas because that's what the company was. And come to find out, I had cloned or healed one of her relatives' birthmarks. Like the lady had a mole or something on her face. I thought it was just a chip out of the paper. Had no idea. I had to redo the work because I didn't do it in a very intelligent manner. I did it right on the layer. And that's why it's really important. That's why I always preach, always save it back up, an archived version of your layers. Because if I did it the correct way, I could have just turned off the layer that I, fixed, found out that spot, masked that part out, good to go, send it right back out, fine. I had to redo everything. So the boss was not happy. I was not happy. It was kind of a mess. So let's do this a better way. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new empty layer directly on top. And this is going to be true for the next demo, which is the clone stamp. Always do your work on an empty layer for the exact reason I just told you. Because if you make a mistake, once it's a part of the pixels, I mean, I can't bring this stuff back. Maybe this isn't a blemish. Maybe this is, a tattoo or something. I don't know. So I want to make sure I've got a lot of wiggle room when it comes to fixing the fix. All right, when you've got an empty layer, let's see, if I just click right now on this empty layer, nothing happens. And let's zoom in a little bit more. You can see that nothing's happening. And that's because we haven't told the tool what to look for. It's really simple to do. With the tool selected, I'll call it a contextual toolbar. Technically, that's not the right name, but your toolbar obviously changes depending on whatever tool you have. So this is what the frame tool looks like. This is what the object select tool. This is what the burn tool looks like. So they all change depending on the tool. When you have the healing brush, spot healing brush, it changes and you see you got this little radio button. It says sample all layers. And that's exactly what it means. It means that it will look at all the layers below it and pick up that information to paint on this empty layer. And that's exactly what I want. So just check mark this, boom, and just give this one tap. Looks good. Clean this little guy up, make the brush a little bit smaller, a little age spot here or freckle or something. Zoom out a little bit. Where else? I'm at about 200%. And when you're doing restorations like this, you're probably safe bet you're in about 200 or 300%. This one I can probably just click, hold, and drag a little bit, kind of smear it around. That looks good. Do a little bit right here, a little bit right here. Like there's just a little bit of like maybe, and it could be like dust on the camera lens too, you know, or the camera sensor. That will create these like little weird feathery things. Like there's a little bit in the corner of her mouth. So I'll just make my brush a little bit smaller. Tag that. A little bit on the chin here. Brush a little bit bigger. And I'm sure I've said this, but the way that I'm scrubbing the artboard, like kind of moving it around, you'll see that my healing brush will quickly turn to the hand tool, like your move tool here. That's just holding spacebar down. So it's just a fast way to scrub the artboard when you're zoomed in. There's a little something underneath her lower lip. Move around here, everything looks pretty good. A little bit on the nose, tag that, and a little bit on the cheek. Now, the downfall of the healing brush is when it's close to a hard edge object like hair or the corner of the, like maybe I'm trying to get rid of flyaway hairs, like hairs that are blowing in the wind that don't look very good. This tool doesn't work that well for those type of things because what's happening here is the size of your brush is seeing all those pixels. And if all those pixels are radically different, it doesn't really understand how to blend them very well. So if that's what you're trying to do, you need a different tool. And we'll do that different tool right after this. So if I click this, I'm probably going to lose the hair. Yep, see, it's got that gap in the hair. Now, will anybody be looking at that at 200%? Probably not, but I don't want to make that mistake. So I'll Control Z, bring that back. I can probably get this little one in between these pieces of hair. So for this hair, I would have to use the clone stamp, but we got a different demo for that. All right, drag this. Let's zoom out to 100% by hitting Control or Command 0. Let's check our before and after. So everything is on layer 1. Turn it off. Before, after. Before, after. So within a relatively short amount of time, we've given it the Hollywood makeover. That's the healing brush. Will we do anything with it ever again? Probably not. It may come up, but I don't have any demos planned for it. I just want you to be aware of it. Because, like I said, you can actually carve out an okay living just doing this, but it is a lot of grunt work. There's not like any design with it. But be careful. You know, you start doing this on the reg and your friends and family find out, and suddenly you're going to be getting a lot of images in your inbox of like, hey, can you take care of my yellow teeth? Can you take care of, you know, this, that, and the other? Can you take care of this? And it's like, if that happens, my recommendation is charge them. Friends or family, they're not above paying, even if it's buying you, you know, lunch or something like that. The only work, like, how do you say this? The only thing that free design will get you is more free design. Hopefully that makes sense. So always charge something. Set that precedent right now. Okay, we're done with this. Let's close her out. White teeth. Well, first we would have to get an image with yellow teeth. So what we'll do is maybe after break, after the homework, I'll search the internet. Can't be hard. I mean, my teeth are starting to stain pretty bad from all the coffee. So yeah, we'll find an image and I'll show you guys how to whiten teeth. Be careful with whitening teeth though. A little goes a long way. You don't want them to look freaky. Like you don't want the high beam treatment, you know, where they're just like super white, unnaturally white. And that looks worse than yellow teeth, honestly. Same thing with white eyes. When people have bloodshot eyes and you try to over correct them, they end up looking like something out of a horror movie. It's weird how just a little bit too far and suddenly it's like, yikes, they kind of crossed into the uncanny valley. Okay, so this next exercise is part of your homework. So why don't we go ahead and open this? This should be exercise, I think it's 18. Nice. Doing it there.
We did 18.
Did we do 18? Then it's going to be
Yeah, 18 is the one with the roller skates.
okay. So it'd be 19. Yep, 19 is the clone stamp. Should look like a guy on a motorcycle. I think I still got it in my downloads thing. Yep, there we go. Again, really good shot. All these are good shots. You know, they're all stock photography, so we're good. Same rules apply as before. We do not want to do this on the layer because let's say that this is going to Racing Magazine and they're like, no, we wanted the yield sign in there. That's part of the point. If you do it on the layer, it's gone. So we need to make sure that we create a new layer. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that now. If you're working in a design pipeline, they'll probably want you to name the layer, like edits, adjustments, clone stamp, or something. It's not necessary. In fact, I'm just collecting PDFs. I wouldn't know if you name the layer or not, but it's probably a good habit to get in. All right, so we talked about the healing brush, and you might make a case to say, this is a good candidate for the healing brush. I disagree, but you might be able to do it. Problem with the healing brush is the way that it figures out what it's going to put as the, I don't know, let me think of a better way of saying that. The way that it interpolates the pixels below is kind of a weird algorithm. Works great for skin. You do something like this that's got texture. That's actually a good way of saying it. So here's what we're going to do. I want to take this image that's very good, and I would just want to take out a few distracting elements, like the yield sign. And to be honest with you, I don't even like this whatever speed limit thing by his right hand, left hand. So I want to get those things out. And if I use the clone stamp, because there's so much texture in the foliage back there, it's gonna smear it. It's gonna look real phony. If it was flat and kind of even like skin, it works great, but this not so much. So we're gonna use a different tool. This tool actually predates the healing brush, and it's the clone stamp. So underneath this, nope, sorry, I made a mistake. I always think that they're bundled together because they're all these healing type tools, but underneath this is the clone stamp, and it looks like the hotkey for this is S. S for stamp. What's funny about this is we got a quick video here, and it's got a bunch of cherries. I pulled a file today in preparation for this, and I must have seen this because I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Grab an image of a bunch of cherries. So I've got an image like this. But if you ever need more explanation on any tools, Adobe's great, man. They got these little videos and they're short, they're concise, they talk about exactly what it is. There's no like wasting time or stuff like that. So if you need a little bit more clarity on these, I would highly encourage you to watch these videos. So what this does, what your stamp does, and you do have a few other options. You've got a clone stamp or a pattern stamp. Full disclosure, guys, I've never used a pattern stamp. I don't even know what it does. So don't ask. What this does is it will literally sample pixels and it will paint those sampled pixels. You know what? Maybe no, I'll wait on those cherries. So, all right. So we've got our new layer selected. Just as before, if we don't do anything with this tool, I believe it's set to current layer, which means it's just looking for the pixels on the current layer. Well, our current layer has no pixels, so that's not going to do us any good. So we need to make sure that we target current and below. So we'll choose that. This looks a lot like the healing brush. It is a brush. So again, your entire brush library is up for grabs. So you can use whatever wacky brush you want. Generally speaking, you want a circle brush. This one you usually want to be soft edge. So let's take a look at my brush. It is a circle. And and it's not very hard. So if you've got something different, I would encourage you to just grab a circular brush, bring the hardness down to 0, and then the size, we'll kind of figure out the size as we go. Like right now, mine's set to about 65 pixels, give or take. You don't want this to be slightly larger than your target area. That will yield really bad results. All right, let's zoom in a little bit and see where we're going with this. All right, so I'm going to start with this sign. The way that this tool works is you don't just click once, or you don't just click, hold, and drag. You need to target a sample point. And it's really easy to target. Think about that word target. Kind of makes you think of like a, sniper scope or something. Got the little target, the little reticle pattern, the crosshairs. That's what your cursor is going to turn into. It'll look like a little sniper scope. So to target something, hold down the Alt or Option key. You'll see that your brush changes. Now you've got that little target. You can target anything you want, but I want to try to target something that mimics the look and the feel of this background texture. So I'm just going to come over, kind of right above this rear view mirror, up to maybe like the midpoint of the sign. So like right about here. And I'm just going to click once. Just left click once. So that's what's been targeted. Now, as I click, hold, and drag and paint, I'm going to come over here. Take a look at your cursor. It's already starting to update. That is what I'm going to start painting. And as I click, hold, and drag, look to the right, you'll see that little target. It'll just turn into like a little tick mark. That target will follow you around and let you know that this is where you're sampling from. So I can click, hold, and drag now. And there's that little target. Make my brush a little bit smaller. Kind of continue to paint that out. I got to be a little bit careful though, because it looks like my target's a little bit lower. This could happen, and this does happen. I'm going to target from down here. So I just held the Alt or Option key down, clicked a new target point. Then I'm going to click, hold, and drag and start to paint until that starts to happen. What's going on here? Well, take a look at where my target is. I'm actually targeting his hand. So that doesn't look very good. Let me Control or Command Z that. I'll target a little bit higher up here to the upper hand. And I'm just going to click, hold, and drag and paint. Try to get as close to the helmet as I can. I might even need to zoom in a little bit. Target a new spot. All right, let's zoom out and check the work. After, before. If you do a good job, nobody will even know you were there. You're like, that's, you guys have all seen movies and television shows. That is the secret to editing. If you guys are getting into nonlinear editing, you should never really know an editor's there. An editor is the invisible art, and that's what clone stamp is. So yeah, you want to clean stuff like that. Now, this can be overdone, and this is where you start to see repeating clone stamp patterns. If you Google Photoshop fails, a lot of it's going to be bad cloning. You see it in like background images where like there's a crowd of people, like say someone's going for an election, big crowd of people, but they want to extend it. They'll just sample a crowd and start to paint, and you'll start to see like, wait, that's the same person as that, and that's the same person as that. They just lazily cloned too much stuff. I did it a lot for real estate images where a realtor would send in an image and be like, hey, can you take these power lines out? It doesn't look very good. Take power lines out. There's a big area of crabgrass in the front yard. Can you get rid of that? Clone stamp the good grass, paint out the bad grass. Can you, make the soffits look a little bit better? Clone the good soffit, paint out the bad soffit. Is it lying? Yeah, it was, but so let's see if we can take care of this little thing by the hand. All right, I'm gonna sample a new area. This one's gonna be just off to the right. Sample this, make my brush a wee bit bigger. Now it's doing fine right now, but as soon as I get kind of closer, to the biker himself. I'm going to start to scale this down. And one of the, I don't even call it secret, you are very, very often going to have to sample from different spots. Don't just sample from the same spot over and over again. That's how you get those repeating textures that look real phony. You know, maybe this worked pretty well, so now I'm going to sample from over here. I'll alt over here, come at it a little bit different, kind of break up the repetition. You can change the opacity. So maybe I feel like, wow, that edge looks a little bit too hard. I don't like the way that that came out. And I would agree with you, like that looks strange. So I'll alt from over here and I'll bring the opacity down to like 40%. Just kind of blend those two patches together a bit better. Alt from up here, alt click, hold and drag, alt click from up here, click, hold and drag, alt click. And I'm still at 40% opacity. You can bring it up to 100 now. Feel pretty good about where I'm at. All right, it's a little bit smeary, but I'm at 300%. I don't think anybody, unless they're looking at it with a loop, is going to notice this. So let's zoom out. Before, after. Just improved, basically gave it a little bit better focal point. I took away a few of the distractions in the composition and left the viewer to see what's important. What's this person on the motorcycle? Clearly, they don't need to see this stuff. So if you've got distracting clouds in an image, clone them out. You got distracting leaves on the ground. Maybe I don't like this leaf right here. Maybe this looks a little bit weird. Again, I'm still on that layer. Now I'll alt from the lower right. Click that, make my brush a bit bigger. Paint that out. That's it. Is anybody's not behaving or acting weird? It takes a little practice. So I would encourage you to kind of stay with it. And the demo's there if you need more support on it. But that's really about it. There's not much else to it. And that's outside of the liquify tool, that's about all of the image reconstruction that we're going to tackle in this class. Could probably do an entire class just on image correction. In fact, I know you could, but I think that that's all we really need to talk about. All right, well, if we're good on that, we'll move on. So, most of you are probably already done with this, so just save it as a PDF, submit it. The next two exercises are composites. We're big on composites in this class, so just want to talk more about masking. And then the last one, well, we'll save the last one to the last one. So this next one is a kind of a fantasy type image. That's what the outcome is going to be anyways. It will be the next one up. It's composite. And this PSD is this image. You've got a few different layers here. You've got a background, foresty type setting. On top of that, you have an image of a deer. And on top of that, you've got an image of a branch with like some flowers blossoming off of it. We're going to kind of create a little bit of a mythological creature here where the deer's antlers are kind of turning into these branches. And if we do it right, it should be pretty straightforward. You've also got a layer that's Adobe legal information. You can trash that. It's not, or you can keep it there. It's not hurting anything. All right. The demo for this, the one that's online, I would prefer you guys to go through it with me. That's not to say that the demo is bad. It's not, but it's very particular with the order that you do things. And because I've run this demo not that long ago, a lot of students got hung up with the selection on this particular layer. And it's because they do kind of a weird selection method. and they don't do a great job of elaborating exactly how to do it. So we'll kind of save that to the end. First part's pretty straightforward. We're just going to knock off the background of the deer layer. Now, hopefully, um, you guys have some pretty good ideas. In this case, select subject is the one to choose, but you might have some other tools or techniques that work. You use whichever one works best for you. With the deer layer selected, I'm going to go to select subject. And I should see the ants kind of walking around the perimeter of the deer. Looks pretty good. And from here, I'm just going to pop a mask on it. So the background should go away. Deer should look like it's kind of in this environment without color correction and without some of the hard edges. But let's go ahead and pop the mask on this. All right, so first step is good. And again, I didn't set this demo up. This comes from Adobe. No mystery there. But based off of the quality of the deer image and the quality of the background and the depth of field, this isn't too bad. You know, I've definitely seen worse composites. Now, does it look 100% photoreal? No, no, but not bad either. The next thing that the demo is going to recommend, and I support this, is while it did a really good job of isolating the deer, part of it that looks phony is the feet. The feet just disappear. You know, the select subject did a great job, but the feet were never really there to begin with. So now they're just, it looks like this thing is floating. Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed like there's also like a space between like its ears and antlers that it missed. Select subject.
Um, oh yeah, right here. Yep.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah, I didn't even notice it. Well, we'll deal with both of those here in a second.
Okay.
We're gonna start with the feet because the feet are pretty easy. But this is not gonna be hard either. This is actually a pretty good candidate for like, there's a couple different things you could do to this. I probably should have went to refine edge, but I missed it. So I was just moving a little bit too fast. But yeah, right there, something we're gonna have to take care of. To get a little bit better, not great, but a little bit better blend between the feet and the environment, we're just going to use a black soft edge brush. We're going to go at it about like 40, 50% opacity. And just take a couple passes here. It's not going to be the best, but it's going to be better than what we see. So let's start with that. We're going to get a brush. So B for brush. This is way too big. So I'm going to use my left bracket to bring it down. I'm at about 20 pixels, 25 pixels. The window is clear where the deer is. It's white. So I want to paint with black. So I need to flip my foreground color. So I'm pretty good right now. I'm going to bring that opacity of the brush down to, like I said, about 40%. So up here is your opacity. I'm going to hit 4 to bring that down to 40. Last thing that you want to make sure is get a soft brush. A hard brush won't help. It'll just add more to the problem. So drop down your brush settings, bring your hardness down to 0. Okay, let's see what it looks like. I'm just going to gently paint, just stroke, 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 stroke until these feet blend in a little bit better. So kind of hide them behind this log right here. See how the back ones look. Maybe even 40% is too much. I'll drop it down to 20%. So you can't really tell where they begin and where they end. I think that looks okay. Zoom out to 100%. Better. Now, if this was a professional project, if this was like a movie poster and it was going to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, I would definitely take more time and really, really make sure that that thing is locked in and nobody can tell exactly what's what. Jason's right that now I do see that ear. I think part of what threw me off is the background between the ear and the antler is like a really, really slate, pale cyan, and the background is kind of pale too. So I didn't notice it right away, but now that I'm looking at it, I do see it. All right. Well, since we've already got a black brush loaded, you could just zoom in here, get your brush a little bit smaller, and start to knock that area out. So I'm going to paint with maybe like 50% opacity, get the big areas out. Now that I'm in at like 600%, I can see a little bit of artifacting around the deer's antler. That's something that's going to be pretty obvious as far as a composite goes. You see those, maybe you guys can't see it. You see those magenta and those blue pixels around the outside of the deer? Those are aberrations of digital cameras. So I can't really explain the science behind it, but trust me when I say that cheaper digital cameras, the way that they interpret light, sometimes they will just create these chromatic aberrations. And around the outside of images, you'll see purples and yellows. And that's just a limitation of the sensors in the camera. Analog cameras, like film cameras, do something different. You don't see it with film, but not too many people shoot film anymore. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in here, take care of it. I don't think that this is the worst area, so I probably don't need to stress over it too much. But since I'm in here, I'm going to go knock some of that magenta off. It's kind of bugging me a bit. Again, if I was getting paid for this, you better believe I would come in here and take that purple and that cyan off. There's other ways to do this too, but that's something that just, it bugs me. All right, so that little piece is gone now as well. The first step to this composite, two-step composite, is done. We've got the deer off of the deer's background. We've got it in a more believable setting in this forest. Good start. Here's where things start to go a little bit sideways in the hands-on tutorial. Deals with this branch. Now, if I said, what tool would you use to isolate it? Someone's going to say select subject, and that's what I would use. Someone would say quick select or wand. Probably could work, maybe, I don't know. Someone would say, I think someone said last class, if you got a selection tool, there's a select subject up here or background or something like that. You would all be right. It's just what tool works the best for this. I'm going to show you the tool that they use, and this will probably be the last and only time we ever do this, but this is a feature in Photoshop. It's a very old feature, one we don't use anymore, probably for this reason, but I want you to be aware of it. So you can select a color range. So with the layer selected, we're going to go to select, and right here we've got color range. This was the way that you used to be able to select like skies or things that were a solid color. This was like the best tool that they had back then. So we'll choose color range and let its own dialog box pop up. It looks like this. Oops, see if I can get this. All right, so it's got a few different bells and whistles on here, but essentially you're just using an eyedropper tool to say, all right, Photoshop, look for this color and then do something with it, generate a selection based off of it. And you can add more to it or take some away from it. This used to be like a go-to tool back in the day for complicated selections. Now it's kind of a fossil. Check this out. You got the eyedropper tool. What the demo does a bad job of is a lot of students will click inside of here. You don't want to click inside of here. You want to click on the image. So just use your eyedropper tool and tap any one of these white pixels. And you'll see something that pops up in your color range that looks kind of like a mask. It's black and white. And that's really where we're going with this. If you were to click, say, the red flower here, it generates a different type of selection, or this bark. But we do want the white, so I'm going to click the white. Your outcome should look something like this. Your fuzziness by default is going to be 128, more than likely. This is a magic, mysterious, ever-present number inside of Photoshop, 128. Because actually I'll make a note. I'm just gonna write 128 down and then we'll do a quick quiz and see if anybody's a techie person. All right. You can leave the fuzziness to 128, but if you want to get an idea of what this slider does, you pull the fuzziness down, it will pick up less of your selection. You pull it all the way up, it will get tighter and tighter. 128 is just fine. Choose OK. Actually, that's not looking good. Let me Control Z that. Let me try that one more time. Select, color range. I told you 128. I'm starting to think that might be a bit too much, or maybe not enough. So I'm gonna grab color range.
Try 120.
I think that might be worse.
The more the fuzz, yeah, the more the fuzziness, the more colors is gonna pick up.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna go up to like, I'm gonna go 200. Choose OK. That's not great. I don't think that this is going to work as well as I thought for this. So you know what, guys, if you want to follow along with the demo, you absolutely can.
Yeah, because I try it, he select all the image.
Yeah, see, right now it's not selecting some of the shadows and things. So I'm going to hit Control or Command D, and I'm going to do it the way that I would do it. Because this image is a ripe candidate for select subject, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, don't snooze on the tutorial. It's definitely worth taking a look at, but that tool just isn't doing what I want it to do. So select subject. This looks a lot better. Actually, it does have its own problems though. Hmm. This might actually be worse. It didn't select everything that. Well, you know what? It could be. I'm just going to do this. You don't have to do this. I want to see how good or bad the selection came out. Yeah, that's garbage. Like that's just going to create more work for us. So let's Control Z. All right, Control D. Let's do this one more time. We are going to use color range. Maybe that was the reason that it was implemented. So I never tried it with select subject. Proved me a fool. So not a great tool for it. So one more time. We will go to select and we are going to do color range. We're going to click on the white area. I'm going to bring that fuzziness down. I will just stay with 128. We'll see what that looks like. Maybe I'm stressing over nothing and choose OK. So you should have a selection. I kind of jumped to a little bit of conclusion. You should never base anything off the marching ants. That's not the end all be all, like the best selection or the worst selection or something. So really the way that you're going to know is by go ahead and hitting the mask. Of course, this is a problem. It got everything that we didn't want saved, and it got rid of everything that we wanted. But it's an easy fix. Just make sure that you're on the mask, not the layer, the mask, and hit Control or Command I, as in igloo. All right, so I should have kind of trusted my gut the first time. This looks just fine. Now there are some holes in the flower. That's okay. If you needed to paint that stuff back in, if you're like, oh, it looks weird, I'm missing data inside of here. Remember, your mask, just hit B for brush, flip over to white, and you could easily just kind of come in here and paint those interiors back in, if that is a problem. For what we're doing, it's not. Just keep in mind, that's how you clean it up. Now, for those of you that are looking and like, it's a jagged selection. I agree, it is. It's not the best, but I don't think the quality of the image was the best either. So we're kind of left to the source file's devices. There's a few halos around. So this would definitely take a little bit more surgery. And the surgery would come in the form of the select and mask and edit mask feature that we've done a couple times. But at this scale, it doesn't really look that bad. I think we can live with this. Let me slow down here. I made a few mistakes. I was kind of getting ahead of myself. Does anybody need me to kind of go through this again? Should we start over with the branch? Are we good with it? I'll pause. See, the demo freezes when you hit. Are you saying like, are you talking about my demo or you're watching the Adobe demo? Oh, okay. And let me guess, Candy, you can't go to like the next button.
Right, so if you follow the Adobe instructions, right after you set the brush up for 0% hardness and at 80 points,
Mhm.
and then it tells you to hit the next button, I
Mhm.
hit the next button, and then it doesn't do anything after that. And I'm assuming it's because it wants me to blend, so I blend, and nothing, like it's not moving on to a next step after it.
I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let me finish up my demo. I'm almost done. And then you share your screen and I'll show you what you need to do in order to get to the next step.
Sounds good.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do, folks. We are going to transform this branch. We're going to rotate it and we're going to scale it down so it looks like it's kind of growing out of one side. Then we're going to duplicate the branch and then we're just going to flip it. So we'll do it in that order. So first things first, make sure that you're on the branch layer. Controller Command T to enter free transform. And I'm just going to shrink it down. And I'm just eyeballing it now. I couldn't tell you the right scale. I want to keep it on the picture plane. So looks like I shrunk it down to about 50% of its original size. And then I'll hit enter to apply that. Easy peasy. Now I could, if I'm really stressing over this, say, you know, I want to blend this in a little bit better. That would be a black brush, and I'll just kind of swipe into it. Again, make sure you're on the mask. It's not bad, but blend it a little bit better. That's something you don't need to do, but if you're real fussy, like I want this to look perfect, those are some steps you'd want to take. The last step is pretty simple. We're just going to duplicate the layer. So you can Command or Control J or right click and choose duplicate layer. Lots of different ways to duplicate. So here's your duplicate layer, and then we just want to flip it. That's an edit transform, not free transform. And then you'll come down here to flip horizontal. It'll flip it horizontally. And then you might need to free transform to kind of nudge it into place. But it kind of looks like this deer is pretty symmetrical as far as like looking right at you. So I'll choose that. My move tool. Move it into place. Now I still got snap left over from the last class, so let's move that. All right, everything looks pretty good. Does anybody see anything weird? I see it on my screen, but it's really faint. Did anybody pick up on like something that still needs to happen here? I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen. See if I zoom in a little bit.
I don't know if anyone else says this, but I have like an outline of a box.
Yep, that's exactly. So when we did our color range selection, did a great job, but here it is. Take a look at this tree right here. I'm going to zoom in. See that little 1 pixel white line? If you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, it's all the way there. Yeah, that's the outline of the original file. It's easy to fix, just mask it. So figure out which mask it is. In fact, I'll turn one off so I don't make the mistake. All right, so this one is right there. I can see it right here. Now, on this layer, mask, B for brush, get my brush tool, and I'm just going to paint over it. See it anywhere else. That's not to say it's not present, so I want to zoom in. This side I notice a lot more. There's that line. Make sure I'm on the right mask. Just get that stuff out. There's another one. It's on this mask. You don't really notice it on the white areas, but man, you can really see it on some of the dark areas. Kind of look for the trees. That will be a pretty good indicator of where that line or lines might be. All right. That is the tutorial. Now I do want to take a look at Candy's because like I said, this particular demo, if you follow along with the hands-on tutorial, it does everything that I just did, but you have to be very precise in the way that you do things. Otherwise, you can't advance to the next step. But sure, that's fine. Does anybody have any questions on this? We're just dealing with composites, dealing with masks. That's it.
I don't know. The demo is not working. My laptop. I don't know why.
The one inside of Photoshop.
Oh yeah.
So here's what it looks like in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's not loaded.
Um, like you don't see, you have Photoshop open, but the demo won't open.
Yep.
Well, you might maybe run an update. If you've got Photoshop open, it should open. This is kind of what I was saying about these hands-on tutorials. I like them. I like the videos better, me personally, because you can kind of do your own thing a little bit within reason. These, you have to do it in a particular order. And if you mess up the order and go back, you can't advance. So here's what it's saying. Well, let's see if it did the color range the way I did it. So first thing it wants you to do is select the deer layer. Boom. Subject, select subject to automatically select the deer. This is what we did. Select subject. And then it says add a layer mask. We did that too. Good deal. All right. Here's the thing, kind of like, I don't know of a better way of doing it, but this little blue prompt jumps around and sometimes it's hidden and you don't see it. And you're like, I can't do anything. I can't move on to the next step. You got to really keep your eye out for this. So now I want you to select the brush tool. Got it. All right. So here's the problem, or here's a problem. And maybe this is what you're running into, Candy. You grab the brush, you can't do anything, and you've got the brush. Well, the brush was already selected. And what Photoshop is looking for is for you to literally select the brush. So you've got to kind of like trick it. So yeah, exactly. So you just click off on anything else, and then you click on the brush, and then voila. Now you can change the preset to about 80 pixels, hardness to 0. 80 pixels, hardness to 0. And now you can go to next. All right, so now that you got all that, it wants you to flip the foreground and background color. You could do it here with the little flip-flop. It wants you to do it here, this little icon, which is default colors. Again, I've already got black and white selected. I've already got them loaded for foreground and background. I would never have to do this, but Photoshop is saying you have to do this. So click there. Now you can click the little curved arrow to go back and forth. All right, and then we are going to mask the legs a little bit. Just boom, boom, boom. Looks good. And now I can go to next. Now you select the branches layer. You got to click on the little eyeball to make it visible. There it is. select color range. And here's where it doesn't do a great job. It almost looks like it's telling you to select inside of here, which I get. But let's see, what did it tell us? You click the white background to sample it, change the fuzziness to 670. So Michelle was right. Going a little bit lower probably is better in this case. I put in 128. They're recommending
Yeah, I
70.
try lower. It's work.
Okay, good. So 70. And then here's invert. I didn't tell you guys to do this. We just flipped the mask. So I guess this will save a step in the long run. Invert. And then you can choose OK. Go to next. Going to add a layer mask. Boom. And then the rest is just the free transformations, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. All right, so let's close this thing out. Candy, do you want to, let's see. Did you want to share your screen, Candy? Is it still hung up?
Yeah, I could share my screen.
Sure, go ahead.
You're not allowing it.
Ah, well, that would be a problem. Here we go. Okay, now try it.
Okay. Let me just share. Let me show this one and this one. There we go. Okay, so I just restarted it so that way we could go through it step by step and you can see what I see.
Okay.
So I start.
Yep.
I do what I'm supposed to do here. My bad. Did not click on it. There we go. Right, and then this is where it tells you to click next. When I click next, it doesn't take me to the next step.
Okay, don't do anything. Just leave your cursor kind of by the brush tool. Drop that down again. Just change the values a little bit and then hover away from it. Move your Discover palette. See if there's anything going on underneath that. I saw something prompt, but it moved pretty quick and I missed it. Blend deers. Okay. I'll tell you what. So this is the part where why don't you go ahead and on the mask, click on the deer's mask and then just paint the feet a little bit. You want to be painting with black. A couple things. I'll tell you what, you went through that pretty quick. Let's do this. Just restart the tutorial, hit that little rewind. Yeah, do that. All right, go ahead and I'll tell you when to pause. So go ahead and just do exactly what you did, and I'll tell you when to freeze. All right, now stop right here. Here's what I want you to do. Your toolbar, on your toolbar, in the upper left of your tool, in the upper left of your toolbar where you see your brushes and stuff, above that, there's like a little rewind button, like 2 little arrows to the left. Go below that.
I don't see that.
Okay, so you see where your move tool is?
Yes.
Okay, don't click on it. Right there, click that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so now select the brush tool and let's go slow. Okay, good. Yep. Go ahead. Fine. All right. All right. Now go next.
There we go. Now it's doing it.
So this is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying this is what happened, but the way that this thing might be designed is it's looking for your toolbar to be vertical because it can't tell you where that thing is if you're doing 2 up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, 742. Let's do the very last exercise and then let's take a break, everybody. Now, I am going to follow along with the demo on this one. I don't want to mess anything up. And there's actually 2 things that I've never done before. And I thought it was pretty cool. Like I learned something from doing it. So I'm going to share this with you. I could hack through it and get it pretty close, but let's just take it right from the pros' mouths. So we're going to be doing our last composite. What's cool about this is you're using empty blend modes to create shadows and highlights. They come out pretty good too. And then we're going to be using an adjustment layer that I've literally never used before. I understand what it is. I can talk a little bit about it, but I would have done it a different way. So it was kind of cool to be like, oh, that's what color lookup does. So here's the file.
Your screen isn't sharing.
Probably need to do that. Not a bad idea. Let's close this out. Close this one out. So we are on 21. Here's the link. And we're going to begin. So kind of like with the deer, we're creating this like kind of fantasy animal type thing where it looks like the flowers are growing out of this. It's not a swan, is it? What, I don't know what kind of, I've seen that creature before. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's,
Flamingo.
is it a flamingo?
Yeah.
Okay. Then flowers growing out of a flamingo. So let's go ahead and begin this Joker in Photoshop. And we'll start tutorial. Now, none of this is hard, but, well, shut up. Let's move this over a bit. Okay, so we're going to start on the flowers layer. And I'm just looking for the blue prompts. I'm trying to keep my eye on where those things are. So we're going to be using the quick select tool for this. Now, I don't have the quick select loaded, so I need to click and hold and make sure that I got quick select selected. I think it was Candy, but somebody brought up last time that when you have a selection tool, you do have the select subject button up here. We could have saved the step, but here we are, same thing. And we're going to choose select subject. I'm sure everyone can figure out what's about to happen. And some people are probably guessing, oh, you're probably going to put a mask on it. You would be right. So we've got a nice selection here. Did a really good job. Mostly because it's shot on a black background. But either way, we're good. So far, so good. We can hit next. Layer mask. You knew that was coming. Here we go. All right, so let's just take a look real quick. We can hit next, but I want to take a look at our work. All right, so we've got the flamingo. Yeah, I guess it is a flamingo, right? It's pink, unless they change the color. But yeah, that is a flamingo.
Not all flamingos have to be like really, really pink.
Good to know. They might have done something to it too, as far as like processing color, but we've got the flamingo and we've got a bouquet of flowers in a very fake manner, kind of sitting on top of it. So we're gonna like blend these together. And just like the deer's feet, we're gonna kind of like mask this stuff in. So we can hit next. brush tool, a lot like the deer. It'll give us some settings. So we want our brush preset size set to 100 pixels, hardness to 0. So it should be a fairly big brush, but very soft. Go in here. Now, some of this stuff, like you guys have figured out, and certainly Candy did, it has to be in this order. When it comes to your brush sizes, it doesn't. It doesn't understand what you're plugging in. So if I plugged in 89 or 99 and my hardness was 8, you can still go to next. All right, so we've got a pretty good size brush here. Let's hit next. Make sure the flow is set to 100. By default, it probably already is, but if it's not, you need to bring that up to 100. Our next project is going to be a digital paintings. We'll talk about what opacity is. We'll talk about what flow is. We'll build brushes. We'll go through the entire brush engine. We'll talk about Procreate. So if you're still kind of like, hey, when are we getting to that? It's coming. All right, so let's hit next. Verify the foreground and background is set to black or white. It probably wants you to toggle these. If you had it right the first time, it probably wants you to spin them around. Don't use the hotkey X. It doesn't understand that. So verify the foreground box is set to black. If it isn't, open the color picker and click on these. So you'd have to like double click here, bring it to black. Okay. So you've got black in the foreground and now you can hit next. Create a new layer icon. You know what? I missed the part. It looks like I was supposed to mask this, but I think I went a little bit too fast. I'm just going to do it. So I saw something pop up here, but I went to next too quick. So here's what it was asking you to do is come in here and paint out a little bit of the flowers. And if you make a mistake or you go too far, you can always paint them back in. So the demo file has this wing showing, and I kind of like that part, but it's also got bits kind of growing out of it. So I'll go with something like that. Guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. And to be fair, there is something else that I would have done to this to prevent bringing the black back. So is it the best way of going about it? Maybe not, but it's not the worst way either. I just want something to look a little bit more organic. So I'll stay here. These next parts are the parts that I really want to focus on because these are the things that are new and they're kind of new to me. So we're going to be making a clipping mask by clicking the new layer icon. And hit continue. Now they tell us there's a lot of different ways to make clipping masks. I usually right click. You could hold down the Alt or Option key and click between the layers. You could click on the layer flyout, or you can go to layer create clipping mask. Do layer create clipping mask. If you don't do this, it'll get hung up. So layer create clipping mask. Or here's the hotkey Command Control, Command Option G or Alt Control G, whatever. Now you got your clipping mask. Your blend mode is going to soft light. And now we can hit next. We're going to grab the eyedropper tool. You're going to grab a color that's a shadow. What color would this be? It's kind of up to you. So I'm going to grab something like this dark. This is the color I've got, kind of like a darkish red, desaturated red. Now, again, this doesn't really matter. You pick whatever color you want. To speed things up, what's happening here is we've created a blank empty layer. That layer is clipped to the layer below it. We're going to paint shadows in to the bouquet of flowers using a blend mode. I've never done this before, and when I did it earlier today, I was like, oh, that's a really cool effect. This is something I might actually use. So that's kind of what's happening here. So if you chose a different color, it probably isn't going to matter, but you will see the difference. I'm going to choose OK. And now we can go to next. Get the brush tool. It's talking about a big brush, 800 pixels, 0% hardness. Now your flow goes down to 70. It's over. Do a one-click brush here. So what it's saying is you want your shadows down here. Take a look at what happens. You move this over a bit. Down here, I want some darker shadows to replicate where the shadows are falling on the flamingo. So if I start to click here, see how that's darkening it up. But because it's a clipping mask, it's staying on that layer. Now, I think there should be some shadows down here as well. Does a pretty good job. Now, is it the best color for it? I don't know. I can change colors if I wanted to. You know, eyedrop, maybe this color. B for brush. I guess it should be a little bit darker. Paint those back in. So it's adding a little bit of contrast, but a little bit of shadow as well. Nice thing about it though is that that shadow has an ambient light based off of that red color that was selected. Ambient light, key light, reflective light. We've got worksheets coming up for all of these when we start to do painting demos. It's important to understand that shadows aren't black. I know that they kind of look black, but they have color in them, even the deepest shadows. So when you do illustrations, really try to avoid black. I mean, if you're doing cell shade or holding lines, that's fine. You know, if it's like a cartoon and you're just using black as a way to keep fills in there, perfect. But when it comes to photography, you'll very, very rarely see like a pure black shadow. All right. Next, you're going to do the same thing, only this time it's going to be with highlights. Eyedropper, it asks you to grab a highlight. So I'll grab this kind of like bright pink up here. Hit next. Same brush. And we're just going to pop in a few highlights on that same layer. You can see that that just brings out a few areas that would be getting a little bit brighter based off of the light source of that flamingo. So here we go. Before, after. Before, after. Those two images, in my opinion, blend much better together. Now I realize I'm going kind of fast. The tutorial's there if you need it, and this is still being recorded, so if you need to go back and take a look at it. But check this out. Here's what this layer looks like. I'm a little afraid this is going to throw off, but I know what's happening on the next one. So I'm going to release this clipping mask for a second. Here's what that layer is. So it's just a bunch of like sloppy little bits of paint. But once that stuff is applied to this with that blend mode, it creates that look. All right, the last thing, and this is what I was telling you about, I've never applied a color lookup before. I've heard of it, just never used it. I'm not a huge photographer. Those days have kind of sailed. But what a lot of people in Photoshop do is they want their images to look a certain way, be it time period, or really more specifically, a certain type of camera or a certain type of film stock. I'll give you a couple examples. Brownie cameras were like these really cheap cameras in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They had a very signature look. They were because they were cheap and because they had plastic lenses, they would have like really weird light streaks and things would kind of be a little bit blurry and smeary, and they looked kind of warm sometimes or kind of cool sometimes, kind of unpredictable. And then when better cameras came out, more expensive cameras, they were just seen as junk and garbage. Fast forward now to the era of Instagram filters, they've pulled those things back. So now they've got really expensive cameras that are made to look cheap and old. We're going to apply some filmatic or analog film effects based off of what Photoshop can do in terms of looking at other types of film stock. So let's go ahead and choose next. So we're going to apply an adjustment layer here. And the one that we're looking for is color lookup. Like I said, I've never used this before, so I'm completely paraphrasing. If this is something that looks cool to you and you want to do some more research, please do. But right here under, let's see, your 3D LUT file, I have no idea what that means. You've got a bunch of different options to choose from, and you will recognize some of these names. And that's exactly what it's talking about. These different types of cameras had different types of settings, will shoot different types of properties. So some will be warm, some will be more sepia, some will be grainy, some will be cold, and so forth and so on. The one that we're looking for is, I think it's a Kodak, memory serves. Kodak 5205, Fuji 3510. It's a mouthful. Kodak 5205, Fuji 3510. We're going to go ahead and hit this. And you can see that it does something. Now, if you want to ask me what I think it did, it added some contrast to it. It warmed it up with like kind of a pink rose hue, and it added some contrast. We're not done yet, but almost. Last thing you're going to do is take this adjustment layer and set it to the darken blend mode. Darken is the third one down. So let's take a look at before and after. Before, after. Shadows got a little bit more intense. Colors, a little bit more vibrant, not much. A lot of these adjustment layers, especially with color correction, are really subtle. It's not so much in your face. So you just kind of want to add a little bit more of a feeling and ambiance to it. And that's what's occurring here. So I was glad that I did it just to at least say now if someone's like, what is color lookup? I can, in a roundabout way, talk about, well, it's, pulling different types of film trade and film stock. But probably be the last time I use it this semester. But I'm glad that I know what it is now. All right. I'm going to it's 8. I want to take a break, but while we're still recording, does anybody have any questions about anything? We covered a lot. So we've got the front end loaded, the back end should be pretty light for the rest of the night. We're going to talk about the homework when we get back from break. We can maybe go through a little bit, answer any questions, but does anybody need anything before I stop recording? Okay, well then let's stop.